nice to have the possibility to greet you all in this project through this video greeting. And we are here, some of us that have been involved with you all in webinars or in teaching sessions or even on-site visits that we have had possibility to do. So this more than 3 years' time has been very, very good for us at SAMK too, because we learned a lot during this process. We have had a COVID that restricted some of our actions that we were planning to do. And now, the last year 2020, has been really a crisis for the Ukrainians, but still carrying out the webinars during this time. So I do remember the starting of the project, where we had the possibility to meet the colleagues, Ukrainian colleagues, also meet the other European colleagues. And we discussed many issues during these meetings together, reflected our education, the differences, the similarities of the education and the curricula. We've been doing a lot in the beginning and in between that have now stayed as part of our education during this project and hopefully will continue to be part of it. So one that I do remember very well is that we were planning to have you all on a site visit at SAMK. And that was the summer 2020. So, and we were planning this half a year, doing all the preparations, serving even the musicians were agreed to be there, or theatre act that we were planning you to see concerning Pori. But then we had COVID. And we really moved to the next stage during the lockdown. In the autumn, this time in November, 2 years ago, we were really pushing on planning the physiotherapy week that we carried out for you all. And that was really like a first time we did something like that. We were in a small room. We didn't have this nice studio that we are now doing this recording. We had a small room upstairs where we had the audio checker. We had the picture video checking person there, Jori, Katja. Then there was me reading the questions and following up the chat. And then the ones that were presenting. And then also the presenters from abroad. Our very good colleague, James Self, was also part of this physiotherapy week. And then I do remember when the audio checker, who is now here, was recording one of the sessions that our teacher, neurological physiotherapy session, practical session with the students on site, online. And we hadn't ever done it before, and we did it. And after that, it's a piece of cake. Because now we have the studio, we have more equipment and everything. But this is really like a learning for us. And I do hope that you also learned something from that week and from other things that we have done together. So now I will pass the word to Viveka, who will continue.
Thank you, Anne. I fully agree with the things Anne mentioned. And myself, I have a very, very good memory of the kickoff meeting in Riga at the beginning of the project, and seeing you all lovely colleagues from the different universities and how eager and motivated you were to get going within the project. That's a very warm and fond memory from Riga. Another thing I would like to mention is what a good experience how useful it was from my own personal point of view to prepare for the lecture during the intensive week, which we put online, because it gave one a good possibility to go through to check what is the actual situation of Finnish physiotherapy at the moment. It's not until you need to present it that you have to look into it in more detail. It was very beneficial for us, or for me personally. The thing I regret is that personally I haven't had the possibility to get to know Ukrainian physiotherapy and physiotherapy education as much as it I would have liked to, because I'm sure we could also learn from your practices and education.
Maija.
First, I want to say that I definitely share the words my colleagues have talked about, and then I'm really feeling as the privileged person that I had an opportunity to meet first in a meeting in Poland, most of you, and it was a very interesting meeting and very active meeting and full of thoughts and ideas. So I really enjoyed. And maybe the greatest memory of this project is when I had a possibility to teach in person in Ukraine, in Kiev. And I saw you all there, and I saw a lot of Ukrainian physiotherapy students, and I had a possibility to share thoughts, to discuss different topics. And because of the situation in Europe and in Ukraine at the moment, I have often my thoughts there in Ukraine, and it's kind of emotional, as you maybe see. But it is like that. But I really appreciate that experience, as well as Viveka said then, and Anna said about this teaching online. It's another kind of world, but it's also needed, and we have learned a lot also through this project. And in the end, I would love to say that I think in every cooperation, in every project, we all get from each other. It's never only giving or getting. So it's both ways.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I think we learned a lot. Hanna, your reflections?
Yes, thanks. I was able to be or join the meeting in Kaunas, autumn 2019, where we were talking about the curriculum plans, and it was really interesting to see how differently we can enter into the world of physiotherapy. There I remember the brewery where we were visiting. I don't drink beer, but I found one I really liked.
Okay.
Yeah. As well, I joined online teaching, and it was really challenging at that time for the teacher, because you don't see the response of the students or those who are listening. So you don't know if you are talking about the things that are interesting, how they are like responding, and that has continued quite a lot in during COVID time, or specifically in the beginning of the COVID time. So of course we have learned, and students have learned, so that it is more like interactive nowadays, but in the beginning it was quite challenging as well. And one thing that I was doing was listing our equipment. And that was really interesting because our lists were not updated and I had to do that all. And it was important for us because now they are listed. And as well, we noticed that we need to do some shopping to get something new. And then we found out what is like out of order, etc. So that was really interesting and important for us as well.
So we utilized also the results that we gave you, the list of the equipments. We utilized that ourselves.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, as well as we did with the list of books and literature that is used. So we didn't even imagine how many ebooks and e-journals we had possibility to use. Now after that, our teachers have been more active listing them in the course description too. So, and that's something that was also pointed out by the World Physiotherapy Accreditation Committee, that when we also showed the list for them that, oh, you have all this and you've been listing all this. And this project also supported us to get the full accreditation in 2020.
Yeah.
So this is something that I can say that even though we were aiming to create the education in Ukraine in a European level or fitting in the criteria of World Physiotherapy in physiotherapy education, I think we all partners and especially SAMK have achieved something new with you. And as we compared the curricula in early states, we saw a lot of differences. And at that time, I remember commenting that something in Ukraine curricula resembled the time of the balneotherapy physiotherapy in Finland, early 90s. And now what I assume that has happened in the physiotherapy education in Ukraine, I haven't yet seen that so much, and I think you all are there now, that in Finland, our physiotherapy education started to develop during the war. Before the war, our education was cut down. And then, when the Second World War started, physiotherapy education started. And the content of physiotherapy really changed during the war. And we still appreciate all these war veteran rehabilitation centers, activities that has been still and are still in Finland in action, even though our war veterans are really minority now. They are all over 90 years of age. You in Ukraine are now in the situation that you have to implement war physiotherapy, injury physiotherapy, amputation physiotherapy. And we do hope that the education now involves in this need and has involved quickly. That happened in Finland in 1940s, and I'm pretty convinced that happened now in Ukraine. And we hope that we can still in future, well, something always positive comes up. The change of physiotherapy happened in Finland because of this war that we had. And I'm pretty convinced that that happens and is happening in Ukraine too. In most of the European countries, because they are now helping in the rehabilitation settings. Hopefully, the Ukrainians, and will be in future. comments just at the end?
As we
Viveka?
are currently hosting, we have hosted 2 Ukrainian physiotherapy students for exchange here at SAMK, and one is currently studying with us. We are very amazed how you, dear colleagues in Ukraine, continue to carry out education even in this very difficult situation, because the student is attending both the teaching here and the teaching you put on from Ukraine, and we are full of admiration for you colleagues at this point.
Yes. And we welcome you all to visit SAMK in bright future time, and it will come.